Good morning. I'm Denise Dryden, and I run a weekly video series. And today I wanted to talk about that it's now time to end compartmentalization. It's a big mouthful, right? Compartmentalization. Because I want to look at how we separate from each other and how we contact and connect with each other. And what does the role of compartmentalizing have to do with that, right? So how we come together and how we pull apart is going to be the topic of conversation today. So I always start with a definition. So to compartmental, or to be in a compartment, is a separate section or structure or container in which certain items can be kept separate from others. So, we compartmentalize our drawers, we put all of our underwear in one place, we have this in our car and this in our homes and this at work. And so that's what we're talking about is, a separate section for things. When we compartmentalize, we divide things into sections or dividers. It's a mental process. Compartmentalize, divide, separate, evaluate. Evaluate, discern, assess, divide, put it where it goes. This is a finely honed skill that we've been using for decades now. Started in the 1960s, with the baby boomers, when we started to really accelerate into the industrial age and television, media, technology, education, everything started soaring, and it became really phenomenally possible to start moving at a much higher pace. Makes sense, right? So our world became more complicated. We had a lot more things going on. New developments, technology, growth, expansion in every industry in our lives. This is also the period of time where we have an entire group of family systems that we're starting to look at, well, I want to get out there in that workforce and I want to be a part of this. So I want to drop back again to this concept of when things get complicated, it's like a conveyor belt. It moves along and you can speed up the conveyor belt or you can slow it down, but things come at a very steady pace. And when that does speed up, it means that you have to be on your feet and you have to react faster. So we're moving things along and we're handling them and we're sorting them and we're addressing them. So when they move faster, we need to have skills that improve with that. So as we get more complicated in our lives, we hone in our problem-solving skills. We hone in our organization. We hone in our leadership skills. Somebody has to step forward and say, you do that, you do that, you do that, and I'll do this, and then we're a team. Multitasking becomes really super important, which is, can you carry on a conversation and sort and problem solve at the same time? And clarity of purpose. If you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, it makes it much easier to deal with stressors as they're moving faster and faster. Make sense? We have an entire generation born into this rapidly, or two generations born into this rapidly changing world. First is the Generation Xers, and then second are the millennials. So they were raised where things were faster, more complicated, frenzied, stressed. This is where we started to see long hours at work, stressors on relocating and moving around for jobs, for opportunities. So when we bring this a little closer in to what I want to dig into today, when the stress level goes up, organization, control goes up as well. I want to make sure we understand that. When our stressors go up, our desire to control, sort, manage, that goes up as well. So it comes down to stress, control, right? Stress goes up, control brings it back down. And in our culture, when it gets more complicated, we become more adept at dividing, separating, and compartmentalizing our lives. So we have, this is my work life, this is my family life, this is my gym, this is my neighborhood, this is my house, this is my extended family, these are my friends from work, these are my friends from school, these are my friends from gym, these are my friends from yoga. And so we start to compartmentalize everything. So when this is awesome because it's kind of like, oh, I find people that I can hang out with that I know, and when I'm in this group, this is what I talk about, and when I'm in this group, this is what I do, and it feels really comfortable. It takes the stressors off, and that makes sense. So from the 1960s forward, we started grouping, clumping, organizing ourselves based on like-mindedness. So we built relationships, companies, neighborhoods, even small towns and communities started to develop based on similar interests, drivability to work, proximity to outdoor activities. Like I've always lived in mountain towns, Bend, Park City, Whitefish, Montana, now even out on Bainbridge Island, where there's specific reasons why you live there because you like to be outside. It makes sense that we gather and we come together based on similarities. But it also means that we're always identifying, I like this because it works, and I don't like that because it doesn't work. So we're still sorting, and we're still categorizing, and we're still compartmentalizing. So we become really fine-tuned humans with an eye of where we need to sort and divide, and where we need to plan. And all of this, just as we get more complicated, and even as our world becomes more complex, we get overloaded. So compartmentalizing has had a very significant role. And what I'm here to say is that over the last 2 decades, it's getting out of hand. And we have some challenges ahead of us. So when we bring compartmentalization into our lives, into our relationships, into our children, into our own bodies, what we know is that the pace and the critical eye for details and sorting doesn't leave a lot of energy for this new energy that's coming in, which is the feminine, which is how do you create responsiveness, creativity, flow? How do you learn to sort of go with the flow when you're always sorting, assessing, and compartmentalizing? So the pace and critical skills of sorting doesn't leave time for collaboration. Doesn't leave time to put everything down and go, I don't know how to work with you and I need to learn how. So we become very strict and segmented. Okay, now the next part is we know how to sort and we know how to categorize and separate, even with ourselves. Like we can look at things and say, I like this, but I don't like this. I like my body, but I'm not sure about my skin. I don't like the way it's aging. I like my hair, but not my body. I have parts of me that I adore and parts of me that I dislike. I have parts of somebody else that I love and parts of somebody else that I dislike. And what happens is that compartmentalization goes into how we manage ourselves and how we manage our relationships. So this compartmentalizing can be an assessing and sorting skill, but it's also really destructive because we find parts of our partners that we are not able to live with. We find parts in our child that we're not able to accept. We find parts in ourselves that we are absolutely in despise about. So whether it's weight, whether it's the way our hair is aging, whether it's the way that our kids do or do not perform at school, whether it is the perception of what we want our spouse or partner to be able to do and what they're not doing, how we act around friends, how we act around ourselves. These are all crucial pieces of where this compartmentalization can be destructive. So it separates, it compares, it diminishes entire systems, people, cultures, into little boxes where you say, okay, you're in there, now what's next? It also allows no room for tolerance, which is when you compartmentalize, you are always focusing on the outer stressors, the outer issues, the outer pressures, and you have very little tolerance for anything that slows that down. It's also dangerous. Compartmentalization is dangerous because when we focus on what we're doing, we forget to look at the other parts that are trying to talk to us. So this could be the places where we see or we feel dissonance. We can ignore it. We can self-medicate. We can say, I'm focused over here, but I need this whole part of me to just shh, be quiet. So we ignore warning signals with our health, in our relationships, at our jobs, where things that would have normally got our attention are now missed because we're hyper-focused on this goes here, do this, and we're moving along. So the path out of compartmentalization, because I always offer a tip, is that number one, to pause. Pause, create space and time, and stop doing something automatically and slow it down and pay attention to everything. See what is trying to get your attention. That's why mindfulness, that's why yoga, that's why some of these quiet walks without distraction are so important, is to be able to take that pause and that space to say, what else is trying to get my attention? Number two, blending. Start moving, mixing, blending your thoughts and experiences together. I use a bubble map in my coaching, and we gather a lot of information, and then in order to blend, we have to take 2 separate or 3 separate components, and we have to say, what do they have in common? What's the relationship between these? What's really going on here? Number 3, to collaborate. Learn how to let go of what you know how to do, what you know how to be, and co-create with another or a group of others. This gets us out of the role of managing and gets us into participating and learning. And collaborating is the wave of the future. So how do we learn to put down what we know how to do and collaborate with others? The 4th one is love. Look, feel, sense what there is about you that you love. What is it about someone else that you love? What is it about the thing you're doing that you love? And you start small. I love this. And then you add to it. And I love that. And I love this. And I love this. And so you start to allow your body to have the vibration of love, the vibration of acceptance into your daily, hourly patterns and habits. And you allow love to take precedence. So I want to close this by saying that, we're learning how to turn ourselves in the world in a different direction. And it starts with collaboration, and it starts with, understanding complexities and how we have to let go and pay attention and let it guide us. And these are tools that are going to be really important. So let's start here with ourselves. When we do our own part for growth and change, and we get curious about what we can do, we learn how to play with others and observe and become flexible, we develop an entirely new world. So this is what I do. If this is something that you're interested in learning more about, you can find me on DeniseDrydenCoaching.com. And have a fabulous Sunday, have a fabulous week, and enjoy yourselves. Take care.